Welcome to the Mindful Mondays podcast, weekly reflections and meditations to start your week right. With your host, author, meditator, and founder of Mind, Body and Spirit Entrepreneur, Rachel Thompson.
Good morning, meditators, and welcome to the Mindful Mondays podcast, a weekly podcast with both reflections and guided meditations that help you set weekly intentions so you can go through your days in a centered and peaceful state of mind. Now, typically, this is a weekly podcast with a new reflection episode and a new guided meditation coming out every Monday, but I have a little gift for you, and we're going to be doing a 21-day mindfulness challenge to start the new year. This means there's going to be a new podcast episode each day over the next 21 days. How it's going to work is every Monday, I'm going to go over a little bit longer of a reflection or a story just to set the intention for that week. But every single day over the next 3 weeks, we will have shorter episodes with reflections and simple suggested action steps for you to take to incorporate a piece of mindfulness practice all throughout the day. Every single day is going to have a slightly different focus, and each activity will help you build your mindfulness muscles. In addition to that, I'm also going to release 7 different guided mindfulness meditations. And there's going to be a new one released about every 3 days or so. I encourage you to do the meditations every day. Now, the reflection part of this podcast, you can listen to when you're driving to work or getting ready in the morning. But as far as the guided meditations, I strongly encourage you to do it in the privacy of your own home, where you can just really focus on what you are doing. And absolutely don't do any of the meditations when you're operating a motor vehicle or if there's any place you could be in danger. Also, I really would love to know what you think of this kind of format of what we're covering. So if you can leave reviews in iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you're listening to this podcast, it would mean a lot. And then I could help you by bringing you episodes that are meaningful to you. So that being said, let's get into day number 1 of this mindfulness challenge. This episode's quote comes from Eckhart Tolle. He says, "Most humans are never fully present in the now, because unconsciously they believe that the next moment must be more important than this one. But then you miss your whole life, which is never not now." And that's a revelation for some people, to realize your life is only ever now. Today's episode is titled Mindful or Mindful, F-U-L-L. And that is exactly what this whole challenge is going to be addressing. We walk around with minds full of junk, and it takes away so much from the here and now. There is only this present moment. I want you to take just a little bit and reflect on this statement. And before you think it's some woo-woo guru talk, let's examine the truth. The past has occurred, but can you do anything to change the past? No, you never can. You can change your future actions based on lessons learned from the past, but the past will remain unchanged. In fact, the past is just a memory. It's just a memory, really, of the last time you remembered it. And studies have shown that humans are often pretty bad at accurately recalling past situations in an unbiased manner. If you never think about the past ever again, the event disappears, because the only thing that keeps that past alive is your recollection of it. Now, the future is nothing more than our thoughts and stories predicting what we think is going to happen. The future only exists in our minds. When the future happens, it is turned into the present. Unfortunately, humans rob themselves of their present moments by polluting them with thoughts of the past and the future. Yes, we endure stressful moments, but they pass. They continue to cause us stress as we ruminate about the past or fear the future. If we simply accept the stress in the present moment and let it go, the amount of stress we all experience will drastically decrease. Humans are doing themselves a great disservice and depriving themselves of the only resource they can never get back, their time. This is where mindfulness comes in. There has been a lot of talk about the subject of mindfulness. Anybody who's taken a yoga class probably has heard at least one instructor talking about it being mindful in your poses, with your breath. A lot of self-help material refer to it in one form or another. And let's not forget the adult coloring book trend that has really made mindfulness a household term, which is wonderful, but a lot of people really don't understand the true meaning of the word mindfulness. So just a little bit of history. Mindfulness has been a practice that's been rooted in Buddhism, as well as a technique that is used in the counseling field for years to help those dealing with anxiety, mood, and personality disorders. And this has been going on a long time before most people knew about it. The techniques have been backed by evidence showing that it's effective in the management of different emotions. Now, I remember the first time that I heard about mindfulness, it was actually when I was in graduate school, and we were learning, and I was in grad school for clinical counseling, and we were learning a technique called DBT, which was originally used to counsel clients that had borderline personality disorder. And one of the main characteristics of this personality disorder is a lot of mood swings, and they would use mindfulness to combat that. So when you think about it, just throughout your days, how often does your mood fluctuate? And why does it fluctuate? Typically, because of something that pops into our head, a thought, a memory, or an anxiety about the future, or an outside event that happens to us that causes us to think either positively or negatively, that then cause that positive or negative emotion, whether it be excitement or fear or frustration or happiness. So I just want you to take a moment right now to think, how often do your moods fluctuate just throughout the day? I also don't want you to think that you need to be a spiritual guru or some sort of yogi or a trained psychotherapist to be able to master this skill. The art of mindfulness is very, very simple, but that does not mean it is easy. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in. Mindfulness is essentially the practice of being present in your life. This means being mindful of your surroundings, other people, as well as your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Mindfulness is when you pet your dog and you simply feel what the fur feels like, without any thought or attachment to it. It's listening to another story without placing any thoughts or judgments on this story, and without thinking what you are going to say next. It's eating a meal and tasting all the flavors, feeling the textures of the food, and hearing the sounds that it makes whenever you chew and swallow it. It is feeling the breeze on your face, the sun on your shoulders, and hearing the birds chirping while you take a walk. Mindful observations help those live in the present moment and take things for exactly what they are without attaching thoughts to it. Because when you attach thoughts or judgments to these outside events, that's what causes the fluctuation in your emotions. So mindfulness will help alleviate stress, fear, anxiety, anger, resentment, and guilt. And it's going to replace these feelings with peace and contentment. And that's not to be confused with excitement or extreme happiness. It's just a peace. Because any strong emotion is attached to a thought, to a strong attachment to an outside event. And I'm not saying that you can't ever feel happy and that you just need to be detached from everything or apathetic towards everything. It's learning to take life as it comes to you without associating these strong thoughts, either super positive or super negative, to it. It's the practice of recognizing what life is actually about. There are highs and there are lows. And what makes the lows really, really bad for us is that attachment. So if we can learn to mindfully just ride the waves, then we'll be much more peaceful in our everyday activities. The mindfulness forces one to live in only that very moment and become curious about behaviors without labeling them, and also prevents people from merely floating from one day to another, and you become a leader in your life. You just don't do things because that's how you've always done them and that's how your habits are telling you to do them. You mindfully decide what you're going to do, how you're going to react, how you're going to perceive certain situations. That's mindfulness. with this in mind, let's start talking a bit about the challenge and what you're going to do today to start this mindful practice in your own life. So this is a time to push yourself, become open to change, and see the transformations unfold. It's not going to be as simple as just sitting back and letting the sun hit you and just living in the present moment. That would be great. But it's not that simple. It's going to take some willpower. It's going to take some mindful observation of your own thoughts and your emotions. And that's what the different daily challenges are going to encourage you to do. I'd encourage you to take one day at a time. Do not focus on what we're going to do tomorrow. Don't focus on what you did the day before. Focus merely on this day. Place your mindful attention on what we're working on and go from there. So in addition, I already mentioned this, but in addition to these reflections and these daily practices, there's also going to be a meditation piece. So I encourage you to do that every day. All the meditations are less than 10 minutes. Try to add it in the mornings or the evenings or twice a day if you can. Just add it in where you can. It's going to help build those muscles. During this first week, we're simply going to add mindfulness into everyday tasks. I want you to think of this like you're training for a race, like a 5K or a 10K, and this first week, we're just focusing on running that mile. And the first day, you might struggle. You might have to take a few breaks. The second day, you still might struggle, but maybe you only had to take one break. And then the third day, you can run a mile. It wasn't pleasant, but you didn't have to take any breaks. Think of this in exactly the same way. Now, the second week, we're going to focus more on broad mindfulness concepts. So you're going to be encouraged to apply mindfulness to increase your awareness, your compassion, your love, your appreciation. All of these concepts are going to be explained, and again, you're going to be given concrete action steps, so don't worry about it yet. Be mindful right here. And then in the third and final week, we're going to dedicate to expanding and practicing everything that we learn. We're going to bring it all together. So this week, you're going to focus on increasing the amount and or the duration of your learned mindfulness techniques. So this is the week where you get to apply everything you've been practicing and, most importantly, reflect on how far you've come. Now, this challenge is really going to help you transform in a short period of time. You're going to notice a decrease in anger, anxiety, frustration, while increasing your awareness, your appreciation of life's little moments. Now, it's not going to be the snap of the fingers, something you're going to have to mindfully and willfully work out. But with practice, you will notice those differences. You're going to be able to develop a new perspective on life that leads to greater amounts of happiness and greater amounts of peace. All right, so are you ready to know what your daily challenge is? Let's get into it. Today is only going to be used in mindful observation. You don't have any sort of activity to focus on other than just observing. Today is essentially going to be like a pretest. So you're just going to gauge how mindful you are before we start this journey. For the entire day, just be mindful of how you navigate in the world. Pay attention to what you think, how you feel, and how you act and respond to situations. The goal is to be aware without any judgment or without trying to change anything. And for some, it might help to journal. Throughout this whole process, it would be a good idea to journal just so that you can pick up on patterns and also, by the end of it, how you can kind of track your progress. For example, when you're driving to work, be mindful of what you think about. Do you feel the urge to listen to a certain type of music or a podcast? Do you know you probably should listen to a podcast, but your mind tells you no, listen to Howard Stern instead? Just observe how your mind thinks, the habits that you have. When you get to work, be mindful of the conversations you engage in and what thoughts and feelings occur as a result. You're not trying to change anything. You're not trying to judge yourself. Just make note. The mindful day will be like falling in and out of a dream. You'll be mindful for a while and then you're going to slip back into a non-mindful state. That's perfectly normal. Once you realize that you slip back into this dream state, you simply bring your attention back to the present. Don't get discouraged or try to change your behavior in any way. Just observe. So this should be a really interesting day, especially if this is not something you've ever done before. And this is going to be a great starting point on your journey. Well, make sure that you listen to the meditation that goes along with these first couple days. And before you head off on your first mindful day, I did want to mention that a lot of what I'm going to be talking about and addressing in this challenge is also available in 3 separate mindfulness books that are available on Amazon. So you can have all of this in writing if you want, and I'll link to that in the show notes. I also offer a free mindset makeover mini course and meditation, and I'll put that link in the show notes as well. And it is a preliminary course to a mindset makeover 10-day challenge for anybody who's interested in that. So again, these are just additional resources if you want to take advantage. Everything will be in the show notes. Good luck on your mindful day, and I will talk with you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to Mindful Mondays with Rachel, a mind, body and spirit entrepreneur production. If you enjoyed today's episode, head over to www.mymbse.com for more free resources and trainings. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and give us a review. And join us next week for a brand new meditation and reflection.